The Trump administration's recent implementation of 104% tariffs on Chinese imports represents one of the most aggressive trade policy actions in modern American history. This sudden and dramatic move has triggered shockwaves across global markets, strained international relationships, and created significant domestic economic uncertainty. This analysis examines the multifaceted impacts of this bold trade policy decision. Policy implementation. The Trump administration announced the tariffs through official White House channels with little advance notice, positioning them as retaliatory measures against perceived unfair Chinese trade practices. Administration spokesperson Caroline Leavitt conveyed the president's stance with a notably confrontational tone. "The president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people. So China has to call first. The president will be implementing these 104% tariffs on China." What distinguishes this policy action is not merely its magnitude at 104%. These tariffs effectively more than double the cost of Chinese imports, but also the abrupt implementation process. The administration provided minimal advance notice to markets, industries, or international partners, contributing significantly to the ensuing market volatility. Specific violations of trade agreements were not comprehensively detailed in official statements, leaving many economic analysts questioning the strategic underpinnings of the action. Unprecedented market volatility. Financial markets responded with dramatic downturns reminiscent of crisis-level sell-offs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted over 1,200 points, while Nasdaq fell 4.5% and the S&P 500 dropped more than 3%. These declines represent the worst single-day market performance since March 2020 during the initial COVID-19 pandemic shock. The impact extended beyond traditional markets, with cryptocurrency values also plunging. Bitcoin fell from approximately $69,000 to below $25,000, a staggering 64% reduction. The aggregate impact is sobering. Approximately $10 trillion in market capitalization was erased within just 48 hours. This massive wealth evaporation has prompted major financial institutions to substantially revise their economic outlooks. J.P. Morgan increased its recession probability estimates from 40% to 60%, citing cascading effects on business sentiment, investment patterns, and consumer prices. Goldman Sachs similarly raised its recession risk estimates to 45%, reflecting growing consensus about potential economic contraction. Business sector disruption. The tariffs have created immediate operational challenges across multiple industries deeply integrated into global supply chains. BMW issued warnings about the potential closure of its South Carolina manufacturing facility due to prohibitive costs associated with importing components from Germany. This example highlights a critical aspect often overlooked in tariff discussions: the complex global nature of modern manufacturing means that tariffs targeting one country can have unexpected consequences for production relationships with other nations. Industries showing particular vulnerability include consumer electronics, automotive manufacturing, medical supplies, and retail consumer goods. Despite administration claims that tariffs would protect American jobs and boost domestic manufacturing, preliminary evidence suggests significant potential for disruption across industrial sectors heavily dependent on global supply chain integration. The timing of this policy shift is particularly challenging for businesses already navigating post-pandemic supply chain restructuring, inflationary pressures, and labor market transformations. Many corporations have expressed concern about their ability to rapidly reconfigure supply networks that have been optimized over decades of globalization. International diplomatic responses. The tariff policy has generated significant diplomatic tension, extending beyond the direct U.S.-China relationship to include traditional American allies. The European Union called an emergency meeting to address trade implications, while Germany's chancellor convened emergency discussions regarding automotive sector impacts. These reactions reflect growing concerns that unilateral American trade actions could destabilize global economic relationships built on predictable rules-based frameworks. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney's declaration, "We will win this trade war," signals potential retaliatory measures from one of America's closest allies and largest trading partners. The implementation of tariffs outside established World Trade Organization frameworks has raised fundamental questions regarding U.S. commitment to rules-based international trade systems that have underpinned global commerce for decades. The diplomatic response suggests a potential acceleration of existing trends toward economic realignment. International partners previously aligned with U.S. trade objectives now appear to be considering alternative economic relationships that reduce dependence on American markets. This could have long-term strategic implications extending well beyond immediate trade concerns. Domestic economic consequences. Economic modeling suggests American consumers will ultimately bear significant costs from these tariffs. Analysis indicates likely increased pricing for consumer goods across multiple retail categories, with disproportionate impact on low and middle-income households. The timing of these potential price increases coincides with already elevated inflationary concerns, creating compounding pressures on household budgets. The labor market impacts present a complex picture contradicting some administration claims. Rather than job creation through manufacturing repatriation, initial responses indicate potential layoffs in import-dependent industries and supply chain disruptions affecting production schedules. Hiring uncertainty is spreading across multiple sectors as businesses reassess operational viability under dramatically altered trade conditions. Perhaps most immediately felt by average Americans is the impact on retirement investments. The market downturn has significantly impacted 401k valuations, which typically correlate with broader market indices. This disruption to long-term retirement planning affects millions of Americans, with particular concern for near-retirement individuals who have limited timeline for market recovery. Public and political response. The tariff implementation has catalyzed organized protests in multiple metropolitan areas including Chicago, Milwaukee, Washington, D.C., and New York. These demonstrations appear to transcend simple policy disagreement, instead incorporating broader concerns about administration positions on immigration, economic policy, and governance approaches. Particularly notable is the media response, which has displayed unusual cross-spectrum concern. Even traditionally supportive outlets have expressed alarm, with Fox News commentators describing the economic situation as a poorly executed disaster. One longtime conservative commentator captured the sentiment shift: "I believed in this and tonight I feel like a sucker." This represents a potentially significant erosion of support among key constituencies including business leaders previously aligned with administration policies, conservative economic commentators, and prominent supporters like Bill Amann and Elon Musk who have publicly expressed opposition to the tariff strategy. Adding another layer of uncertainty is the emerging legal debate regarding executive authority to implement such extensive tariffs without specific congressional approval. Multiple sources have characterized the action as probably unconstitutional, with legal scholars noting the unprecedented nature of such broad tariff implementation through executive action alone. This constitutional dimension introduces additional uncertainty as market participants must consider not only the direct economic impacts but also potential legal challenges that could alter policy implementation. The possibility of judicial review creates a complex decision environment for businesses attempting to develop strategic responses to the new trade landscape. The implementation of 104% tariffs on Chinese imports represents a dramatic departure from established trade policy norms with far-reaching implications across multiple dimensions. The initial market, diplomatic, and economic responses suggest potential for sustained disruption that may undermine the stated policy objectives of economic security and job creation. As this situation continues to evolve, close monitoring will be essential to understand the full spectrum of impacts. The administration may face increasing pressure to recalibrate this approach if economic impacts worsen or political support further erodes. What remains clear is that this bold trade action has created a period of significant economic uncertainty with consequences extending far beyond the direct U.S.-China trade relationship.